why stability is engineered, not accidental. Stability never happens by chance. It is designed, tested, and constantly defended. And when it fails, it exposes how fragile everything really is. This matters today because modern finance often treats calm as a natural state. When markets are steady, it feels like normalcy. But normalcy is an illusion. Stability exists only because someone built systems strong enough to sustain it. Remove those systems, and disorder appears instantly. London understood this earlier than most. The city learned that markets left to themselves do not settle into balance. They swing, they overshoot, they react emotionally. Stability had to be constructed deliberately, not through control, but through architecture that guided behavior without commanding it. At first, stability was crude, informal agreements, personal trust, gentle coordination between institutions. These methods worked when markets were small. But as capital flows grew and complexity increased, informal stability collapsed under its own weight. The city needed something stronger, so it began engineering calm. Rules were designed not to eliminate risk, but to shape it. Buffers were introduced to absorb shocks. Processes were standardized to reduce uncertainty. Systems were layered so failure in one area would not cascade through all others. Each choice reflected a simple belief. Instability is inevitable, but catastrophe is optional. This approach transformed how markets behaved. Participants learned what responses were expected. They adapted to constraints. They internalized limits. Over time, engineered stability began feeling natural. Predictability replaced improvisation. Confidence grew not because risk disappeared, but because its boundaries became clear. And once stability feels natural, people forget it was built at all, until the moment it breaks. Engineering stability required accepting an uncomfortable truth. Markets do not self-correct gently. They correct violently. Left unchecked, fear accelerates faster than reason. Greed amplifies momentum. Uncertainty feeds on itself. Stability, if it appears at all, is brief and accidental. London learned that preventing catastrophe meant shaping incentives before emotion took control. The city began designing systems that nudge behavior quietly. Margin requirements discouraged excessive leverage. Clearing structures redistributed risk before it concentrated. Settlement rules introduced delay where immediacy would have caused panic. None of these mechanisms eliminated volatility. They redirected it. This redirection mattered. Participants adjusted their strategies around known constraints. Risk-taking became calibrated. Expectations aligned. Markets learned how far they could move before resistance appeared. Over time, these boundaries became internalized. Stability emerged not because people were calm, but because they understood the limits of instability. But engineered stability created its own illusion, because when systems work well, they disappear from awareness. Participants begin assuming calm is normal. Risk is underestimated. Leverage increases quietly. Confidence grows faster than caution. The same structures that once restrained excess now enable it. Not because they failed, but because they succeeded too well. London recognized this cycle. Stability had to be dynamic, not fixed. Systems required constant recalibration. Assumptions had to be challenged. Stress had to be imagined before it arrived. Engineering calm was not a one-time act. It was an ongoing process of adjustment and vigilance. This vigilance separated engineered stability from complacency. Because the moment stability is taken for granted, it begins to decay. And the city learned that lesson repeatedly, often the hard way. The conflict appears when engineered stability starts creating false confidence. As markets grow accustomed to calm, behavior shifts. Participants stretch assumptions. Risk models rely on recent history. Volatility feels manageable, even predictable. The memory of disorder fades, replaced by the belief that systems will always intervene before damage becomes serious. This is the most dangerous phase, because stability, when overtrusted, becomes fuel for excess. London has seen this pattern repeat across generations. Periods of calm invite leverage. Innovation accelerates. New instruments promise efficiency. Complexity increases quietly. Everything appears controlled. until one assumption breaks. And when it does, the stress tests everything at once. The engineered systems respond as designed. Buffers activate, constraints tighten, liquidity pulls back. But the scale of reaction reveals how much pressure had accumulated beneath the surface. Participants are surprised not by instability, but by how quickly it returns. This creates tension between protection and punishment. Systems must restrain behavior without destroying confidence. Too gentle and excess continues. Too severe and panic erupts. Every adjustment sends a message. Every signal reshapes expectations. Stability engineering becomes as much psychological as technical. Inside the city, leaders understand that calm must be challenged regularly. Stress is simulated. Scenarios are rehearsed. Weakness is exposed deliberately. The goal is not to prevent shock, but to prevent surprise. Markets can survive volatility. They struggle with the unknown. But even with preparation, surprises emerge. Innovation outruns regulation. Behavior evolves faster than models. New connections form where none were expected. Engineered stability is always chasing reality, never fully ahead of it. And that means collapse is never impossible. It is only postponed until the next test reveals whether the design still holds. The climax comes when the illusion finally cracks. Markets realize that stability was never guaranteed, only managed. When pressure peaks, engineered systems reveal their true purpose. They don't prevent loss. They define its limits. They absorb shock where possible and release it where necessary. Panic is slowed, not erased. Damage occurs, but it does not spread without resistance. This is the moment stability proves it was never accidental. London's architecture holds because it was built to bend. Rules tighten. Liquidity contracts. Risk is repriced brutally, but coherently. Participants adjust behavior not because they are told to, but because the environment changes around them. The system teaches through consequence. And then something critical happens. Expectations reset. The belief that calm was natural disappears. Respect for limits returns. Risk-taking becomes deliberate again. Stability is re-understood as a condition that must be maintained, not assumed. This recalibration is painful, but necessary. The resolution is not comfort. It is clarity. Markets move forward with renewed discipline. Systems are adjusted. Lessons are encoded. The memory of instability becomes part of the architecture itself. And stability returns, not as complacency, but as earned equilibrium. London's enduring contribution is this understanding. Calm is not luck. It is labor. It must be engineered, defended, and constantly renewed. And when it fails, it teaches why it was needed in the first place. Because stability does not survive on belief alone. It survives on design. Subscribe to join the journey. Why?